Richard Weston had everything people dreamed of: gleaming marble floors, a garage full of exotic cars, and a name that commanded respect in every boardroom in the city. Yet, despite all his wealth, his mansion felt more like a museum than a home. There was no laughter, no warmth, only silence echoing off the expensive walls. The one person who brought even the slightest hint of life into that lonely palace was Maria. She was always there before dawn, quietly wiping countertops, dusting shelves, arranging everything with such care that Richard often wondered if she treated his house better than anyone had ever treated her own. She never pried, never complained, never even sat down in his presence. If he left a jacket somewhere, she would fold it neatly and place it where it belonged. If he came home late and exhausted, he'd sometimes find hot tea waiting on the table beside a napkin that simply said, "You work too hard. Please rest." She never signed her name, but he always knew it was her. Richard never thanked her, not because he wasn't grateful, but because gratitude was something he had forgotten how to express. Compliments were not part of his language. He was efficient, distant, business-minded, feelings complicated things, until the day she didn't show up. At first, he assumed she was running late. After an hour, he grew irritated. After 3, he grew unsettled. No one had ever seen him leave his office early, but that day, he did. He called her phone. Disconnected. He drove to the nearby market where she often bought groceries. The cashier recognized her picture immediately. "She hasn't been here for days," the woman said. "She looked different last week. Tired, scared." That word sent a chill through him. Richard spent hours driving around, searching through alleys and rundown neighborhoods until he reached the industrial outskirts of town. A place where people went when society forgot they existed. The air reeked of burning trash and oil. Rusted metal sheets made up makeshift shelters. Stray dogs rummaged through piles of discarded cans and broken toys. This was where she lived. His chest tightened painfully. Guilt followed, creeping in like poison. He stepped out of his car, his polished shoes crunching against shattered glass. People watched him with suspicion, his expensive suit an alien sight among the broken. "Have you seen this woman?" he asked, showing Maria's photo. An old man squinted, then nodded slowly. "They kicked her out yesterday. Bulldozers came, said the land was being cleared. She had nowhere to go." "Where is she now?" The old man pointed toward the dump beyond the fence. Richard didn't hesitate. He climbed over piles of scrap metal and broken furniture, ignoring the filth staining his shoes. Then, he froze. A young boy lay curled beside a mound of garbage, hugging a thin blanket. Dirt streaked his cheeks, but his eyes widened in recognition. You're Mr. Weston," the boy stammered. "Where's your mother?" Richard asked, voice trembling. The boy lifted a weak arm and pointed deeper into the dump. Richard's pulse hammered in his ears as he followed the direction. There, lying on a sheet of cardboard soaked from last night's rain, was Maria, motionless, pale, protecting nothing but a torn backpack she had clutched like treasure. "Maria," he choked, dropping to his knees. She opened her eyes slowly. "Mr. Weston," and that was the moment everything inside him shattered. Maria blinked slowly as her mind struggled to process where she was. The ceiling above her wasn't made of rusty tin. The air didn't smell like damp cardboard or smoke. Instead, a faint scent of lavender lingered, and soft white curtains swayed beside her. A hospital. She tried to sit up, but a wave of weakness pulled her back. Panic jolted through her. "Sam." Before she could cry out, the door opened. Her son rushed in, wearing clean clothes far nicer than anything he'd ever owned. His hair was washed, his cheeks flushed with life. He was holding a cup of pudding in one hand and a small toy car in the other. "Mama," he beamed, racing to her side. "Look, they said I can eat as much as I want. And Mr. Weston gave me this car." She stared at him in disbelief, tears filling her eyes. Her boy, her sweet boy who had never complained despite nights spent freezing, who always told her, "I'm not hungry," just so she could eat, now looked safe. Before she could speak, another figure stepped inside. Richard Weston, but he didn't look like the poised, commanding millionaire she was used to. His hair was disheveled, his sleeves rolled up. His eyes were bloodshot, the kind that belonged to someone who hadn't slept. He was holding a tray of food with both hands, as if it were the most fragile thing in the world. "I brought you breakfast," he said quietly. Maria looked away, shame burning inside her. "You shouldn't have done this," she whispered. "I'm just your maid." "No," Richard replied firmly. "You're not." She shook her head. I didn't want to bother you. I thought if I disappeared quietly. Disappear. His voice broke. You almost died, Maria. Her lips trembled. She had spent years swallowing pain, smiling through hunger, suffering in silence. She had taught herself that people like her were meant to endure, not to be saved. But now, someone had saved her. A billionaire, no less. I don't understand, she whispered. Why are you helping us? Richard was silent for a moment. Then he placed the tray on the bedside table and sat at the edge of her bed. Because I should have noticed, he said, voice thick with regret. You served me for 5 years. You made sure I was comfortable every single day, and I never once asked if you were okay. You took care of my home, while you didn't even have one. Her eyes widened. He continued, softer now. I always thought money made me powerful. But I've never felt more useless than when I found you lying in that dump. Maria's throat closed. She covered her face, crying silently. Richard gently moved her hands aside. You're not alone anymore, he said. And neither is your son. Sam, sensing the emotion, crawled onto the bed and wrapped his little arms around both of them. Richard looked at them, mother and child trembling in his embrace, and something inside him shifted permanently. He didn't just feel responsible. He felt bound to them. From that moment, he knew. Saving them wasn't charity, it was his second chance at being human. Life inside Richard's mansion slowly transformed from a cold display of wealth into something that resembled warmth. Laughter echoed in corners that had long been silent. The kitchen, once used only by staff, now smelled of fresh pancakes every morning because Maria insisted on cooking for Sam herself, despite Richard hiring a full-time chef. Sam had his own room stocked with books, toys, and glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. The first night he saw them light up, he screamed with joy, thinking they were real. Richard, standing at the doorway, had laughed, an unfamiliar sound that startled even him. Maria, though grateful, remained cautious. Years of hardship had taught her to wait for kindness to fade. But Richard didn't stop. He didn't treat them like guests to be managed or obligations to be fulfilled. He included them. He asked for Maria's opinions on the house, took Sam with him on casual drives, even let the boy sit in his prized Lamborghini, something no one else had dared request. One afternoon, Maria found Richard sitting at the dining table with a notepad, scribbling intensely. What are you doing? She asked. He looked up, embarrassed. I'm trying to learn how to cook rice. She blinked. Rice. He nodded stiffly. Sam said your rice is better than anything in this house. So I thought, maybe he'd like mine too. She stared at him, and laughed for the first time. A real, unguarded laugh. Richard froze, as if stunned by the sound, then slowly smiled back. Still, beneath the growing comfort, Maria held one fear close to her heart. What if this was temporary? What if he changed his mind? That fear ended one crisp Sunday morning. Richard called them both to the living room. He stood in front of the fireplace, holding an envelope. I bought something yesterday, he said, handing it to Maria. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. A deed to a house. Not just any house, but a beautiful, modest home with a garden and sunlight streaming through every window. A place built for living, not showcasing. The deed had her name. And Sam's. Maria's knees nearly gave out. Richard, I can't accept this. He stepped closer. You can, and you will, because this isn't a gift. She frowned through tears. Then what is it? A promise, he said softly. That you and Sam will never again feel unwanted. That you will never sleep on concrete or dig through trash for shelter. That from now on, you have a place in this world. Permanently. Sam tugged Richard's sleeve. Does that mean, you're our family? Richard looked at him, stunned. Maria held her breath. Slowly, Richard knelt to meet the boy's eyes. Only if you'll have me. Sam grinned. Can I call you Uncle Richard? Richard's throat tightened. He nodded. Maria covered her mouth as tears streamed freely. She stepped forward, and before doubt could stop her, wrapped her arms around him. Richard, once a man defined by walls, let himself be held. He closed his eyes. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone in his mansion. He felt home.